Good evening. Welcome to the Milton Warrant Committee meeting of August 24th, 2026. Karen, can you call roll to call us to order?
We have Elaine Craighead, Elaine Craighead, Lorraine D., Larry Johnson, Levita Johnson is on Zoom, Andrew Coe is on Zoom. Here we have Lee Michael McLean, Lindsay Sands, Ron Sia, Jimmy Stornaris is on Zoom. Nicholas Tagney is here, Cecile Yang is on Zoom, and Jay Funlin is here. You have a quorum.
Okay. So first, I want to say a bit about scheduling both for tonight and for the upcoming time period. So I think it's safe to say the biggest article in this fall town meeting is going to be the articles related to the purchase of La Brea. The members of the warrant committee received an email from Nick Milano saying, I don't want to misquote him, but we submitted an offer to La Brea College. La Brea provided feedback on the offer, and the select board will be having a meeting tomorrow night in executive session to further discuss it. So what does that mean for us? That means that tonight, certainly we don't have a dollar amount saying this is the dollar amount we're offering for the La Brea College. So we're, among other things, not gonna be taking a vote on that article. Additionally, then the question comes, okay, well, when will we have a dollar amount and so that we can take action on it? I don't know, but the plan is to have a meeting a week from tomorrow. So that I believe is Tuesday, the 1st of September. Because I think we'd all like to hear from Mr. Daly, the chair of the select board. He's not able to make it a week from tonight on Monday. He is able to make it on Tuesday, the 1st. So the plan will be we'll meet that night. Now, nobody can predict the future. I asked Mr. Daly, I said, should I declare that we'll probably know a price by then? He said, we don't know. So we only know what we know. And so that's our schedule for a week from tomorrow. We're gonna meet again with the chair of the select board is the plan. For tonight, we're going to be meeting with the chair of the school committee. We, as a body, had questions for him about how does this property meet the school committee's needs. I expect him to be here around 7:45, give or take. So until then, for tonight, we'll be discussing the other two outstanding items for the fall town meeting, which is one is about CPC funding for the Tucker Playground, and one is about adjusting the MBTA zoning bylaw. If I were to predict the future, it's not quite 10 minutes after 7. I bet we're gonna wrap those up before Mr. Loring shows up. We can open the floor to discussion of anything pending at that point, or if we don't have anything that needs to be discussed, MATV will put us on a break until Mr. Loring shows up.
Before we jump into that stuff, can we talk a little bit about the framework on the library in terms of like if they have a number next Tuesday, like we should be in a pretty good position to make a recommendation, but the warrant committee comments and everything are due pretty shortly thereafter, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about when does the warrant go to print, which, was in the first week or week and a half of September.
So like the 7th or like the 10th?
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Okay.
Mhm.
And is there wiggle room to push that if this continues to get delayed or?
This would
how
just
would we-
become a pink sheet probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, the best is if we have our recommendation complete with comment in the printed warrant. That's
Okay.
certainly the goal.
Yeah.
As Mr. McLean, Mr. Lee Michael, I almost called you, says, it's possible for us to submit pink sheet, green sheet, whatever color sheet at town meeting to say, we can print in the warrant, we don't have our recommendation yet, we'll have it for you. That's
Well,
not,
even the article would be incomplete because they won't have a dollar number to put in the
yeah,
article.
certainly if we don't have a choice, then that's,
And
that's
so that
fine.
wouldn't get ruled out of scope if there's no dollar number on there, is there?
let's back up. Oh, yeah, so the article would say something along the lines of,
Price to be determined?
yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, often financial articles just don't say any dollar number in the sorry, I'm trying to do things and talk at the same time. don't say any dollar number in the article, and the dollar number is in the recommendation. So,
Okay, alright, great, that was good, that helped me with my questions, appreciate that.
yeah, certainly, I mean, if we're held harmless because we can't do something, that's one thing, but I guess the worst of all possible worlds is if we just barely have time to do something.
We'll have time, we'll make it work.
Let me peek at a
Avoid green
draft
sheets
version of
if
the
you can,
article.
you know? It's best to avoid green sheets if you can, I think.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, Article
Always annoyed
7
me as a
says,
town meeting member.
Yeah.
Article 7 says, will you vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to be expended under the school building committee? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the related article. Number 6 says, voting to authorize the select board to acquire, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that could be printed in the warrant, even if we don't know a number. It might give me agita, but that doesn't change the fact that it can be done.
So, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like maybe some kind of an emergency meeting next week for the board, once we get the number?
Well, we're gonna plan for a meeting on Tuesday of next week,
Okay, great.
and I don't know when we'll know, like, if we don't know the number by Tuesday of next week, when will we know the number? I might just get a couple of meetings on the like, I'll try to look ahead, since we have to, give 48 hours notice of our meetings, maybe get something on the schedule ahead of that.
Should we talk about what specific issues we think would come up to get ahead of it, or do we just wait? I mean,
I love doing that, yeah.
Our little subgroup on that project has come up with, I think, 3 primary issues. One is what's the dollar number? And it seems like, if I remember things correctly, after reimbursement, the middle school project that they've contemplated at Guile Road is $130 million. And the proposed preliminary estimate on building the new facility at Library is 85 million. So anything between the number, that's math eludes me, 85 to 130, you get a wash on the number. That's assuming they wanna move forward on Library without any kind of reimbursement. If you do the reimbursement, or they could go with option 2, which is a little bit cheaper than 85 million or something else, then feels like you should move forward. Assuming that the school committee is enthusiastic about it and says this solves all their problems, that's number 2, I think. And then the third thing in my mind is, what's the backup plan if a year from now, 2 years from now, they decide they don't wanna build this? Do you have an exit strategy? So to me, those are the 3 issues, and there's a lot of permutations they're at, and there's some other costs around. I don't know if Elaine, I did that right, but to me, those are the 3 issues that we need answers to.
exit strategy, like what to do with the building?
Yeah.
If we buy a library but we don't.
Yep.
But I think there's another issue, because we haven't heard from the school committee yet. We will hear from Mr. Loring tonight. But Sean O'Rourke made it clear that he was just talking to us about that one particular potential purchase, and not about the proposed middle school that's going up, that was supposed to go up on Guile Road. Is it either or? Is it both? I mean, I don't know what the plan is going for. I haven't heard a plan. Because I know that a number of years ago, originally it was designed, originally they were thinking about just doing an early learning center, which this would be at La Brea. Then they pivoted and said, no, a better solution that will solve the overcrowding both at the middle school and the elementary level would be the building on Guile Road. So this early learning center will definitely reduce the numbers at all of the elementary schools, but what happens at the middle school? I mean, I remember there was a video in 2022 of overcrowding, showing the overcrowding at all the
The
elementaries
library.
and the middle school. And the enrollments have increased since 2022. So is the middle school overcrowded or not? And if it's overcrowded, why isn't the focus there? I don't,
agree.
But I thought enrollments went down, no, or just not
What'd you
in
say?
middle school? I thought they said enrollments were trending back down.
Oh, well, some people say they will, but
No.
And I think that's a
It's
question for the
unknown.
school committee, they have to say,
Yeah.
this solves our problem, or it solves our problem,
Yeah, here's-
part of our problem.
Can I cycle back to one thing, this is sort of pedantic, but the select board is negotiating the price. Now, when you said 130 million minus 80 million, if it's between that, you know, you were not speaking for the warrant committee or town meeting to
No,
say,
no.
or the town to
Just- I
say,
think that's the issue.
if the price is less than this, let's go for it.
No,
I just wanna,
yeah, I agree.
I think that goes without saying, but
I
Yes.
would, on the thing on the price, you said we need to find out what the price is, cause
Yeah.
we really don't know the numbers, but I would say, I would point out that the school building committee has been developing the $135 million number for like 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Labouré number has been developed for like
A month.
a month.
I agree.
There's no way that number's close to reality. Have you ever tried to build a tunnel? Like, it always ends up being twice what it was.
Yeah.
But so that's one thing, is it realistic? And then the second thing that I really think that that should be part of the conversation is what is the opportunity cost of using that piece of land for an early education learning center? We are desperate for commercial
Yeah.
development in our town. That is a huge chunk of prime land where you could sink commercial in the middle of it and not bother, you know, the neighborhoods on either side, and we could make money that could actually offset the cost of building a new school. We already own land, so why would we pay money to buy new land and then block a commercial development from going in? That seems crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a question for the select board, you know, what's the alternative? You know, if you don't put the school there, and how does that benefit or not benefit the town, I agree. Or if the school doesn't get built there for whatever reason, what would you put there? I don't know if it's zoned for commercial, those are all good questions.
I think that's what I was about to say, it's definitely zoned for residential. I don't know, you know, it could quickly be zoned for commercial perhaps, but
Of course, like any other spot in town.
I don't know if it can be, I don't know if it can be unzoned for residential, and I certainly don't know if it can be unzoned for a 40B. So, I like the way you're thinking, but I don't know if we can deem, yes, this will be a commercial, even mixed use and not a 40B. I don't know.
That's a zoning, it's a zoning question for, right?
It would be a zoning article, and yeah, you could zone that piece of land just like every other piece of land's been zoned to allow commercial on that specific spot. But I would think that if we put out word to developers that we're interested in a mixed-use development here, that some ideas would start coming in. We wouldn't design that, we would just say we're open to this, you know? But I think buying it and trying to build a school on it ends any ability to to do that.
Well, step two of that,
Yeah.
buying it doesn't end that.
Well, I
Like
was.
buying it could
I don't know.
buy us, you know, we could buy it and then, you know, this is, I'm getting way out on a
Yeah.
limb here.
Yeah.
If it takes a year for us to zone it as we want to, we could buy it first and then,
I have a little bit of
zoning
heartburn
is
about
free.
Hendry's and us buying part of Hendry's to help control that process.
is that how that works?
Surprise.
Right.
And that didn't go great.
You know more about that than I
Oh,
do.
you mean, 'cause it took it took years,
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
years.
Yeah, it took years,
Decade.
oh my god, yeah, that was insane. Wow, yeah, like 10 years or something.
The town, not to get sidetracked, but it's somewhat relevant, the town bought, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
What
a
happened?
didn't
teeny
realize
little
that
piece
either.
of it, yeah. So that we could have a say in what happened with the development. And we had to agree in the end with the bill, anyway, I don't wanna go all the way down there, but we inserted ourselves as a town in the middle of a process, which is really a commercial real estate
Right.
developer's business, and it ended up being very acrimonious. Trees were cut down, people were sued.
I do remember the tree thing, I didn't realize that we had done that we bought, so that we got some, it was like a way to end around the 40B thing.
But I guess to focus on what we're being asked, you know, we're being asked to decide, let's say in the next week or two, do we want to encourage the town to buy this land? So you've got an interesting idea. Are we gonna figure out an answer to your question in the next week or so?
Find that hard to believe. But yeah.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
It's good to anticipate that question in town meeting. I'm
I'd
sure
like
it
to
will
know if
come
the
up.
select board had considered it,
Okay,
you know?
I think that's part of the exit plan. Like, you know, if the
Sell to
plan to do
developer.
it as part of the school, if that's the plan, that's great, if that's their recommendation. But I think they need to say, if for whatever the reasons they decide not to build a school there, what's the alternative and how does that protect or support or enhance the town's finances? You know, what's the exit plan, if they need one? I think to me, that's one of the three issues that's important to understand.
There's gonna be a lot of discussion about whether the schools are actually overcrowded or not, you know, that comes up every time.
well, I mean,
Well, and I'd also be curious, not this is for the school committee question I have, and this might sound a little crazy, but like, what is the impact of the crowded schools? Because,
Oh, no, it's, yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't know if anyone's actually studied that. I mean, of course, everybody wants, 12 students to one teacher, but it is a public school, and I'd be curious if anyone has done the correlation of, if you have 20 kids and under, kids perform this way and they all go to Harvard, but all of a sudden, if you have 25 to 32 kids, people suffer and, just what the resources are. And I'm not expecting like a straight answer, but it'd be nice to know that it's been thought about the real benefits of, what we're trying to solve here.
Well, I'm just saying the question comes up every time so that, whoever's presenting on this at town meeting
Mhm.
should be prepared to field that question.
It does come up every time, but if it really is an either or, if it's Gile Road or this,
Yeah,
both of them are sort of presuming we're overcrowded, both of them are presuming that we're gonna do this to relieve the overcrowding to some extent or other.
Well, it couldn't be Guile Road or this, it would have to be this plus some solution to the middle school.
That's a good thing to ask Mr. Loring.
That's
I
the
don't know.
question, is like, is the middle school still overcrowded the way that they presented it to be overcrowded in 2022? I believe the enrollment numbers at the middle school have gone up since 2022. Cause if the school committee just wants to build an early learning center, I think we're looking at something else down the road. So I would wanna know about a plan.
I mean, theoretically, I guess they would have to speak to this, but that relieves pressure on the elementary schools, which then relieves pressure on the middle schools. I guess that's,
How does it relieve pressure on the middle schools though?
It won't,
Just one's middle school, they all.
it won't, it bottlenecks at the middle school. The high school is bigger and they haven't had the same kind of problems.
The cafeteria at the middle school is a
Oh, it was
nightmare.
awful. My kid went through that. The lunches, there were like 4 lunches and nobody had you couldn't
4
get
lunches.
seats and
that's
stuff.
tough, man. I went
Eating
to an
at
overcrowded
10:30
middle
a.m.
school. It was awful.
Yeah,
Plymouth,
It would be,
Because the kids are horrible at that age, not.
Yeah.
you're on the record.
It's bad.
Yeah.
No, not everyone's kids. My kids were great. But it was just like, oh man, it was terrible. It was the worst time to be in an overcrowded school was 7th grade, 8th grade. Brutal.
Have there been public hearings to discuss this plan, or is it still, you're looking to lock a number first and then present?
I mean, both the school building committee and the school committee have discussed these issues. I have not watched all their meetings, I'll be honest.
Watched most of them. It's an open question on the middle school. It feels like it's an either or proposition, either Labrador or Guile. The school committee seems to be favorably inclined to the Labrador project in solving their problems. They did a lot of work in looking at different alternatives of what could you put into that building from the size of the building and the needs of the school system. They seem to have concluded, although I think we need to hear that tonight, and kind of clear it on equivocal terms, that this solves their problem. I have heard what Elaine said is that there's open questions about whether this solves the middle school problem and whether you might need a project down the road for that. It's unclear what the scope of that might be like. But from what I've listened to on those meetings, they seem to think this is a solution for them. But I haven't heard that clearly yet.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The infrastructure's there. It's built for a school. You can easily transition it into an elementary or a preschool. I don't know where they are with the Guile Road construction, but I would think that this would be the one to replace the Guile Road construction or project.
Yeah, I mean, that's the theory, but we haven't heard anyone say that flat out, I haven't.
Yeah.
The school bid.
It just makes sense to theorize that, that way.
Yeah,
But the school building committee is just focused on building, right, not the operating costs after.
Right, it's true. So one of the arguments that I've heard is that operating costs are a little bit less by doing this at Labrador, because you can pick up the whole administration of the pre-K and kindergarten program and just move it there, as opposed to hiring a new administration for a new school. So that apparently is one cost advantage of this. And if I remember correctly, the other costs associated with this are kind of a wash between the two programs. So there is a little bit of savings there, but how much of that is, I don't know the answer to that question. But, and that's if I heard correctly.
Yeah, that sounds familiar from
Maybe they,
the last meeting.
moving the administration frees up some space. You know, I guess we'll just have to ask Mark when he gets here.
Right, they are gonna move some of the administrative offices if they do this to library, and that's gonna save some space in the schools. I don't know
Yeah,
where, I think that's mostly at the high school. And, you know, as much as library feels like it's ready to go, they have 3 different options for construction at 3 different price points, all of which involve a lot of renovation, and option 2 and 3, a lot of renovation and cost. So it's not, you know, yeah, so we haven't seen a final number, but it seems to be slightly more economically advantageous to Milton from what I've heard so far.
all right. Well, those are good questions for Mark when he gets here, right?
Well, we got through at 20 minutes, Jay.
This
Is
was a
that
good use of our time, yes,
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
I'm
That was a
pleased.
good discussion.
So now if this is a good stopping point, let's move on to the other 2 articles. Ron, would you like to speak to?
Can I add one more thing that just occurred to me?
Sure.
Just so, we don't have to discuss it, but if the kindergarten were to go to the La Brea property, what does that do to the distances that the kids have to go to get to the school from their neighborhood?
I mean, I
Oh,
think
yeah,
bus
no,
routes
but-
are gonna be challenging. I've already thought of that, but I don't know how they're gonna alter them.
It'd be fun to go sit in the parking lot and watch all those little kids going to the schools.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So
Don't.
many of them, no, I
Don't.
won't.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, it would be adorable.
Watching all those little kids in their yellow t-shirts on the first day of kindergarten,
Yeah,
walking
so
out, it'd be hilarious.
Sorry.
Like every kindergarten kid in
It'd be
town.
great.
Yeah.
Those kindergarten t-shirts are so big that my kid wore his I'm going to
Right, still wear
kindergarten
it.
t-shirt the last week of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's true.
Oh my gosh.
I just swim in them.
That's awesome.
Ron, are
You
you
wanna talk
prepared?
Article 4?
Yes, please.
I copied you on the email, it's a big attachment. Do you think
Sure,
I can-
hang on.
And I think Jay, you forwarded it to the rest of the.
Yeah, I forwarded something to the whole group.
So I spoke to the project leads.
Remind us what
or-
we're talking about?
This is, Article 4 is the funding request through CPA to support Tucker Playground rejuvenation and fixing, I mean, their playground is just, it's more of a old parking lot where they just, you know, kids play dodgeball, but I think most of the asphalt's like decomposing right before their eyes, so definitely, you know, work needs to happen there. But this was a request for, I think, 300,000 out of CPA funding to support the renovation at Tucker, our elementary school. So I did meet with the project leads and there's about 30 slides. I'm not gonna go through them because I don't think we're here to talk about is it the right thing or not. It's a great project. I mean, you can look through the slides. They had very thorough, they had designers come in and if you go to maybe slide 2, I'll read this after,
Sorry.
but go back one. Yeah, so just their goals, right? They wanted to build a updated playground where the students and also the community, because they said they leave it unlocked so kids can play on weekends. So it's really more of a community space. And they said there's not a lot of playgrounds in the area. And I used to live on that side of town, there aren't. But you know, kids will go, families will go, walk their kids there and they'll use the space. So that the plan was still to keep it open so that the community can use it even after school hours, which I loved. And one thing would be, you know, they want to really rebuild it so it's really more up to date to what your kids need for safety. I think they had a climbing wall that's been roped off, but kids probably still use it, which is just, you know, sounds like that's gotta get torn down or redone anyway. But we can go through,
Keep going.
yeah, do you wanna just fly through these next slides? They had a lot of different designs that they talked about. Oh, one thing they did mention, you know, we've been updating some other playgrounds and facilities around town, we just haven't done the Tucker. So it's kinda like this is the one that is up for investment. And I don't think anyone would disagree with any of these, but if you keep going, Karen, some of the later slides show some of the different design options. Oh, this is the that little rock wall that they've kept roped off, and I'm sure second graders will be very you know.
Respectfully.
Yellow caution tape.
Right. Let's not encourage anything, but yeah, I don't know if that little yellow tape's gonna hold back avid climbers, so. But yeah, there's cracks in the asphalt, I'm sure it's dangerous because there's probably gravel everywhere, but we can go to the next slide. Just some project timelines. So we are in phase 2, which is, or it's in process, right? That's where they've hired design folks, they've gotten estimates on cost, and they're going towards, hopefully if they get the funding through CPA and some other sources, they would start construction. That's why I think Nick talked this, Mr. Milano talked this in our last meeting. That's why this is on the special town meeting, because of the timing, that they need to do this over the summer so that the playground's ready for the following school year, fall 2027. So that's why normally this would be the normal town meeting, but they need to catch the construction timeline. Next slide, please. We can keep going through these. They did present this to the community. They went through multiple different designs. I don't think we're gonna opine on the designs. But there's some site surveys, the funding. We can keep going. If anyone has questions, of course, we can also send it to them. They're very happy to advocate more for this if we wanted to have them come in, but I don't think we're gonna go into too much detail here. These are like 5 different designs, where to move the playground, what can they build in there. So they're very thorough. They presented this all to the community. It sounds like, they're in a good space. Jay?
And I think the Warrant Committee is generally very deferential to the Community Preservation Committee and what they wanna spend their money on. What, I guess I'm trying to figure out the timing and what years, they have a certain amount every year. And they already spent everything for I guess I'm trying to figure out, is this from next year's budget? Where's the money coming from?
So I did not talk to Tom, but
Okay.
I can ask Tom. Every year they have a certain amount of money. I can't remember, it's 1 million something. And this is just on the warrant, it doesn't talk about where all the funding's going. I think because that would come up in the next town meeting. But this is just for this 300,000. So when they present the full CPA budget for the year, this 300,000 would already be accounted for. So
Okay.
he's gonna keep track of that, I assume.
Yeah, I just don't,
You're gonna expend that.
Cecile has her hand up, she wanted to.
thank you.
Yeah, from what I remember with working with Ron on the CPA articles from the last round, I don't think we spent all the money, and Tom did mention there was carryover over the previous years, because I think the number of projects, it just didn't end up using up all of the CPA funds.
Oh, okay.
So there's like stuff held in reserve.
Yeah, because we don't typically have to vote on every single CPA project. We usually just do the whole thing all at once.
Yeah, it's a full list.
I think they're in there. It's itemized usually.
Yeah, but they're all, we
But
vote
they're
on
all
them
one
together.
as
Yeah,
well.
right, yep.
What's the total cost of this?
Okay, so I think if we go to slide 27, I think 26 or 27 will have details. One question I did have when I looked at some of these designs, I think they did talk, they could be putting in turf possibly. And I remember when we talked, the lower Gile Field turf could be a concern for some folks. I didn't wanna get into that because that's a design question, we're just talking funding. But I did tell them that could come up, and they said they've done some research in that space, I guess. I felt comfortable there.
They should just be prepared to talk about it.
Right, runoff.
Yeah.
So here's a total cost, 1.45 million, so it's a lot. They've already, the upper portion shows what they've already, I think previously gathered in terms of investments. And then the next slide gives a different breakdown of where the money's coming from. This is where the money's going. So the 300 for CPA is in bold. The additional funding, they didn't have that yet. And the 450,000, which is the second or the third to last line item there, that's also not committed yet. That they told me was being requested through Ayanna Presley's office as a federal grant. And of course, that's not guaranteed, but they felt when they looked historically, oftentimes these types of projects, the Congress people have a lot of ability to, advocate for them.
Okay.
So obviously that's not guaranteed. If they don't get it, they would have to revisit the funding and look for other local or state sources. But their plan is, they feel that they're waiting to hear back from the Congress person's office. Hopefully
this-
good news.
No bonds or anything, huh? No loans, nothing?
No, and I know, I did mention that to them, that at the last town meeting, bonding for 88 Wharf, that little space was a contested issue, but this is just supposed to come out of the CPA's annual funds.
Did they happen to say what they're gonna do about parking?
So they're building a driveway to wrap around, cause they need to bring trucks to the other side of the building, and like emergency fire trucks to the front of the building. But I don't think that there'll be parking in that playground anymore. Right now, you could park there.
Right.
But it'll be either a grass or it'll be some playground, and then there's a drive all the way around to the front for emergency vehicles and maintenance.
They don't usually allow parking there.
I think it's temporary parking. I think you park there, but you're not supposed to. Because right now it's just,
During
it's
election
just
days or
asphalt.
whatever, they allow parking.
But do you mean parking for the school in general?
You know,
I don't think that school has a parking lot like that anymore.
I
It
thought
won't.
that they did use it on non-voting days for cars and then they reserved it for voters on voting days, but I'm not positive.
So are there lights, so it's accessible at night?
I'm not sure.
Or, no.
Yeah, that could impact that dark sky law that was proposed.
No, don't go there.
Oh, this is town lighting. Town lighting gets an exception. Yeah, it could be. I would think, maybe some security lights and some safety lights, but I don't know if I don't think they got into, is this a 24/7 playground? I would think that's probably the assumption is nighttime, kids shouldn't be there.
I think I'm still, less concerned about the details of the playground
Yeah.
and more about the money. Like if I look at the warrant last year, just looking real quick, and maybe Cecile can help me out. It looks like for FY 27, which is the year we're in, bringing in $1.18 million. And then they spent $1.05 million. So, okay, they spent $130,000 less, $130,000 less than they're bringing in. I guess I really wanna know a little bit more solidly, where is this money coming from? If it's FY 28 money, it won't appear for 6 more months.
Oh, you mean like really, when would they cut this check?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can ask Tom.
I mean, if they want it to happen in fall town meetings, they can cut a check presumably earlier, gotta have the money.
Yeah, and
Maybe it's possible that they need town meeting approval to go for federal or something like that.
Yeah, could be.
yeah, I can
think
ask them
that's-
if they're just looking for approval or they actually need the funds to start paying the construction worker. I can't remember.
I have no doubt that there's a good answer to that, but I think I'd wanna hear the answer to
Okay.
that.
How does the CPA funding work again? So if they get it and then they don't get the 450 and so the project, is it use it or lose it, or like, does it go to
So they don't know if they'll get the 450,
right?
and I think they were planning that if they don't get that, they would have to pause. Most likely, it would impact that fall 2027 timeline, but I think they're trying to not have to get there yet, so
That might go to your timing question, cause maybe by the time they,
it's the same could be for the CPA funding. If they didn't get that, then maybe that also impacts their current timeline, that it wouldn't happen. So,
So, okay, there's discussion tonight about the project itself. I don't know if we have any more open questions about that, or if I guess here's, to let you read my mind, here's what I'm thinking. If we're not gonna vote tonight, let's get all the issues out tonight, so that next time we meet, we can just vote. So,
Is a CPA commission recommended this, or is it just a request? Yeah, okay. So Tucker Group solicited the funds and CPA is making the recommendation and we have to just say, recommend that gets approved or
Right.
not.
this article was submitted by the
Yeah.
Community Preservation Committee.
And it's
Seems like a great project.
just to clarify, it's the whole playground, right? Cause there's 2 playgrounds now, there's like the one in the front and then the one in the back, it's the whole.
I think what
I
the-
think I
the-
saw the design.
yeah, the design they're going with, they were gonna leave the garden that's in the middle.
Yeah.
But they would otherwise rebuild the rest of the playgrounds.
Yeah, I've been over there a while.
So,
So it, oh,
This
sorry.
this would represent about 25% of CPA's annual funds. Okay,
Right, for the, for 28, fiscal year 28.
so
And there's a certain amount that's already committed for the War Park project, and then there's gonna be a request, I think, for the fire station building.
mhm.
So their surplus fund for other stuff is gonna be diminished from where it's been in prior years.
right.
Right, so the list
But
will
if
be
they-
shorter.
But I think that's, their recommendation.
Yeah.
It seems like a great project, that this is what this kind of thing is designed to do.
I did ask if they thought about bonding, and I don't think they were like, that's out of their scope. That would be a Tom question. Apparently Tom and the CPA management team is looking to just fund it right out of 1 year allocation. So I have your question, Jay, about the timing and the impact, and then I'll also ask the team what happens, in terms of, does the project get paused if either of these big chunks of money don't come through?
Okay.
And any other questions, just email, I'll bring it back.
So I'm not hearing a motion tonight, but we've raised all the issues we wanna raise, so we hopefully can make a quick decision next time we meet. Okay. Lindsay, you have something to say, and then we also have our guest here. Do you
Yeah,
think you'll
I'm
be
quick unless you
quick?
want him to go first, or,
I think you'll be quick, I suspect.
yeah, I don't have anything to share. So the language was in the zoning was being modified because we did submit the economic feasibility study, so the language as written when it was adopted had that study as a contingency, so it was written if the EOHLC approves the study, you can increase the affordability requirement in the MBTA Act to 15%. So again, they've approved our feasibility study that supported that increase, so they just wanna amend the language, so it's just a straight 15%. Which they also, I asked the planning board, is that now it's finite, right? So I said, well, what if there's a change in our economic feasibility? Does that go up or down? Not as written, but they did say they like how it is because then that will just help go toward the overall affordable housing goals. So if we keep it at 15, it's a little stricter if things happen to move, but it goes to the overall agenda.
So to clarify, we had the economic feasibility study done.
Yeah, and I have, if people are interested, I did get the letter that approves it and the
Okay.
documentation.
So just to bring everybody back up to speed, as Lindsay said, when we passed the MBTA zoning law, we said you have to have at least 15% of affordable housing. And we said, unless the economic study says you can't, and then we'll lower it. So we're taking out that unless.
This doesn't seem necessary to me.
I think technically it's not, but they just felt it cleared up what could maybe be confused language in future readers.
Yeah, what if it does economic feasibility study?
Necessary or not, this article is going to town meeting. Any other questions?
Well, one of the issues with possibly not being necessary is that if for some reason that determination is unmade for some reason, that our feasibility study isn't possible, it no longer specifies a 10% minimum.
Right.
And that was
my
did you say
question,
you-
their response again was just they felt they liked having the 15 because it encourages more affordable building.
But it's already in there. Sorry,
It's
I'm
in
not
this
arguing.
one, I don't think there's a requirement to continuously update the feasibility study. I didn't look into that under the entire Act 3. So I think it's kind of written as a one and done. So I think in the future, if we found that this wasn't sustainable, we'd have to come back and amend this again.
I mean, this says it's if we make this change, it's gotta be 15%, period.
Right.
So if it gets undone, too bad, our law says 15, I mean, not too bad, but I don't know if it would then say, oh, this all falls apart. Are we prepared to make a motion and vote on this tonight?
And I'll make a move that we vote on it as written or as amended.
Okay,
Second.
okay, moved and seconded. Any discussions about the motion in front of us? Karen, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Who seconded it? I thought so, okay. Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Levita,
Yes.
Andrew. Andrew,
Alright, yeah.
Lee Michael,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Cecile,
Yes.
Jay,
Abstain.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite the school committee chair, Mark Loring, to join us. Your ears are probably burning. We spent the first 20 minutes discussing various things around this topic. How do we kick this off? Do you want me to just let you extemporaneously speak about La Beret, or
The 4 questions we can.
yeah, Nick, do you wanna take the floor and
Yeah.
guide the discussion?
I think one of the questions is, where do you guys stand on this? Is this your recommendation? I know there needs to be a number provided, but, you know, in the absence of that, do you guys have a view? Are you waiting to get the number to make a recommendation yourselves? That's the first question. I think the second question is, if that happened, does it solve all the space debate that's happened across the town for the last whatever number of years, or are there other constraints that might be out there? To me, those are the 2 questions for the school committee. I've bet other people have others, but those are the 2 big ones, I think.
Yeah, thanks. So the school committee at this point has not taken a formal vote on this project, like this versus the other project. What the school committee has kind of voted on and decided on was the direction of the feasibility study that school building committee ended up contracting with the architects to create. And I think Sean O'Rourke came here and did a presentation to y'all. I kind of shared us. I couldn't be at the meeting last week. But that's essentially the conversation of, we were working with the select board and the school building committee to try and figure out what is the ability of this site to provide any amount of space support for the district given the space shortage. And so within those discussions, as we were talking about what are different models, right? We talked about the upper middle school model, a 5-6 model, a pre-K model, a K-5 model. We talked about a lot of different things. The superintendent and his team at one of our school committee meetings back in May or June, I think. We asked the superintendent to bring to us some ideas. We talked about that publicly at 2 different meetings. And so ultimately, the school committee's decision was like, okay, we'd like to learn more about the pre-K model. That's something the department thought highly of as they were talking about, like, what could we do within the site. We also think that is a smaller enrollment model than the upper middle school model that's currently being looked at Gow Road, and a K-5 model as well. It's just fewer students, and the site is smaller, right? It's 4.7 acres versus 6.4 acres or around there that Gow Road is. So it's just a slightly more constrained site, as great as it is. So that's kind of the discussion, conversation. We had a presentation last Wednesday from the architects and school building committee to the school committee to kind of share that. I think there's a lot of excitement about those plans that, again, y'all saw. I think y'all even saw them before the committee did. But there hasn't been kind of direct action taken by the board the committee at this point to say, like, this is where we need to go above and beyond the Gow Road project or anything like that. I think there's still ongoing work because the feasibility study is pretty pretty early in the process. There's ongoing work to really analyze the site, see what can fit there, what it programmatically works. But mostly the superintendent and the director of the preschool program met with the architects in the development of the feasibility study. They incorporated much of that feedback. It's a really good, strong design. It seems like the site really can support kind of the type of programming that the district would want to provide on the site in a pre-KK model. The second part of your question is, does this solve all the space issues? And the answer is no. It solves many of them, solves less of them than the Gow Road project, right? The Gow Road project is a bigger project, it is a bigger school. It's the 7-8 school, which is north of 600 students. And then the separate preschool, the current program at La Brea, I think is, around like 333 kindergartners plus preschool. So it's substantially different in terms of scale. We do believe that the La Brea site, if turned into a pre-KK program, would help address the most pressing need right now, which is the overcrowding at the K-5 schools or pre-K-5 schools, depending on them. It also, because the mansion would be used for kind of central office staff, it couldn't be used for students. I think, again, they talked about that in the presentation to y'all, but it would allow us to bring central office out of the high school. It would allow us to be other ancillary supports that right now are based out of the high school, which is what we were designing to do at Guile Road as well. And so it would provide the kind of anticipated space support at the high school level that we think we'd get with Guile Road. So the one place where it's really not providing any support is at Pierce, where we wouldn't be pulling out a grade from Pierce. We wouldn't be really doing anything around space improvements at Pierce through the La Brea project. So that's the place where it would not support. And again, I think that's one of the trade-offs of the two projects is just, one does 90%, 80%, whatever it is. The Guile Road project does kind of everything, but it is a larger project, more expensive project. Timelines also of those two might differ as well.
So if La Brea were to be purchased and, the construction go forward and everything, would then the school committee be giving up on the Guile Road project or seeing it as part of the plan?
Yeah, I push on the school building project is through the school building committee, which is erected by the town meeting and not just school committee. So that is not solely a school committee decision. So the school committee would need to have a conversation, decide, again, as we kind of get some of those details. We did get some of the budget number details, as you saw, I think within Sean's presentation, showing the cost difference that's currently estimated between the La Brea project, depending on which size project we do, and the Guile Road project. But yeah, ultimately, I think both projects would not move forward. I think that is very clear, that one would need to go forward. It seems like La Brea right now is a more cost project. It's going to be cheaper given it's not a total.
As long as you don't want to solve the middle school problem.
As long as the challenge is then you again have those other trade-offs. So again, it's a trade-off proposal.
Jimmy?
Hi, yeah, sorry. So if we do buy La Brea and we do turn it into a pre-K, what happens to the Guile Road project? What's the plan there? What's the direction?
So that's not clear. So that would be a question for the school building committee and ultimately town meeting. Obviously, the legislation that was passed around Guile Road was that it would be used for school building. I forget the exact language, so it's possible that the town could choose to put something else there. It's possible the town could choose to do nothing with it, and then I think the reverter clause would kick in. But that's a question for a broader group.
Is it just zoned for school, or is it multi-zoned?
Right now, that parcel is owned by the town, and I'm not sure the exact zoning of it. It was a protected site. Again, that kind of special legislation was passed at town meeting and then had to be approved by the legislature. That all went through a little over a year ago at this point, something like that. But again, within that legislation, there's a reverter clause that would kick in here, I think in about 6 more years, something around that. Don't quote me, Sean O'Rourke knows the details backwards and forwards, so he could answer all of that. But yeah, if nothing is done on the parcel by that date, then that reverts back to conservation land, which is what it was before the land swap, where we traded other parcels for those parcels in order to create a parcel that could work for a school project when there was no other opportunity within the town to do that.
Got it, thank you.
Yes.
Has the school committee talked about what a centralized location for kindergarten would do to the travel distances and other impacts upon the students?
Yeah, we talked about that's a programmatic trade-off. The benefit of bringing the kids together is that you can have a common, start of school experience in pre-K and K, combining the pre-K resources in terms of like what currently is being split by that program across Tucker and Cunningham and consolidating those together and putting those with all the kinder kids and really building a literacy-rich kind of learning environments. Pre-K, early childhood learning centers are prevalent elsewhere in the state. They're not the most common, but they certainly aren't unheard of. So those are like real positives of it. The negative is your kindergartner can't walk down the street to your school, right? This is a much more kind of removed space. It's not a very walkable space compared to most houses. There are some families who probably can walk there. There's been conversation around transportation implications of how would we need to move things around. We likely would need more transportation, more buses in order to get kids over there, although our younger kids are more commonly either walked or driven to school. So there's some math and assessment we would need to do on that. We just haven't gotten to all that full level of detail, given kind of the quick timeline and turnaround. But yeah, there are benefits of having the kindergarten experience be so close to home with the other siblings. That would be lost by doing this, but again, the idea here is that the parcel as I took it when the architect showed is it becomes very tight already with a pre-KK model, and that's not even with a cafeteria, regulation, gymnasium, any of those things that really would be requirements if you were to do some type of larger project like a K-5 project or certainly a 7-8 project where you need an auditorium, those types of things that we had within the Gower Road design, they're just not gonna fit on the project. So the parcel size is driving a little bit of this above and beyond maybe what like an ideal programmatic decision might be for the town, and that's I think one of the trade-offs that the town as a whole will need to like figure out if we accept it.
Do you guys think you'll take a vote at some point before town meeting, or?
Yeah, I assume-
If when the select board comes up with a number, are you guys gonna take a vote and make a recommendation as to what you think makes sense?
I think the select board has already put in an offer on the parcel. I assume we will take a vote before town meeting, because I'm confident town meeting will ask the school committee what its opinion is on the article, as they do for most warrant articles that have some relation to the school. And so generally prior to town meeting, we will schedule time to take a vote. I assume we'll also probably take a vote on the playground article as well, the type of playground article, because I assume we'll be asked about that too.
Yeah, from what I said on the warrant committee, I think it would be valuable for the warrant committee to know what the recommendation is, the school committee is before the warrant committee was to make a recommendation. I don't know if that would be fair or you have enough time for that, but I think that would be an important input from what I said.
I also think that these other questions about what would eventually happen at the middle school, those need to be answered before town meeting is gonna say, oh yeah, I have enough information to make this decision. Because if you have a long list of things that you're trying to solve and you say one project solves like 100% of them and the other one solves 80 or whatever, are you just gonna not have those other 20% of problems anymore? Do they go away for some reason, or do we need to solve them with some other money somehow? It seems kind of like if we don't have the answer to that question and we ask town meeting to support a vote to purchase the La Brea property for a pre-KK, then they're gonna say, how do I know what's gonna happen after this in terms of the other projects? So we don't have a complete plan, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we don't have a complete plan. It's also possible that as we work through this, the pre-KK was the initial to be very clear, like we had to pick a program in order to create a feasibility design to get some information within the timeline that we needed for the La Brea purchase and sale. So we have not done, from a committee perspective, a robust enough kind of analysis of exactly what we want the program to look like. We've not done community engagement pieces around what does this experience mean for kindergarten families. We've not done any of that because we had no time to do any of that, and the summer happened. We were told La Brea needs a decision by the start of August. That's when they were gonna start getting offers, and we needed to move quickly, and the architect can't move without some direction on a type of feasibility design. And so within that conversation, we said, we asked the superintendent for their recommendation. The superintendent and the team looked and said, this looks like they visited the site. I visited the site, most of the school committee members did. Superintendent said, this is what we think could fit here and really work within the structure of our program. So we chose that, moved that forward. But yes, there's lots of other work that needs to happen, that would need to happen if the parcel is accepted by La Brea, the sale price is accepted, if town meeting votes to accept it, and exactly how does the project work. I don't think I'm not sure what the warrant article language is, obviously it's not submitted by us, it's submitted by select board, so I don't know if it even says in that it's for a
It's
pre-KK
just-
option,
it's
it's
just
just to
purchase
buy
of
land for the
property.
town, and I think the primary is for school use, and we gotta keep working on that. I think, there is potentially a scenario where we present something, the town votes it down, but then that's still
It would essentially
asset.
allow us to lock down the asset while we figure out.
yes. And from the purpose of the, and Sean might share this, from the MSBA's perspective, there is a window in which we can look at the library within the context of a K-5 or a 7A program. Again, I think parcel's too tight, but there's stuff we could look at under the auspices of the MSBA. We can't do that until the town owns the project. So, if
That's
we
good to know.
wanted,
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
we can't look at the library parcel under the MSBA review unless the town owns it. So until the town actually owns the parcel, we
Okay.
can't say theoretically, if we own this parcel, can we hire the architect to look at this? The MSBA won't allow you to do that. They'll only allow you to look at, you can look at multiple parcels, and we put within our OPM and our architectural design, we listed library within those postings so that in case the town procured it, we could then include that within the MSBA study and see, is there a way to fit a project on that still would allow us to go through MSBA and get reimbursement. There are other implications of that with timeline and how much would we need to go backwards and what's the cost of escalation and things with actually losing another year. So things like that are still, all this is very complicated and like pieces jumbled together. But the MSBA won't allow us to look at anything around the library until the town owns it.
Makes sense. So that goes to the exit plan you were talking about. So I mean, there is a chance that we may not use it, that we purchase it, decide that it doesn't work for a school after all, and go in a different direction. That is a possibility, but
Yep.
We won't know.
Yep.
Okay.
Is somebody from the select board coming?
The plan is for a week from tomorrow, Tuesday the 1st, to have Mr. Daly from the select board come. Yes. Because I don't know what I said when. So the select board made an offer last week, near the end of last week. I hope I don't say this incorrectly. Near the end of last week, library came back with a response of some sort. The select board will be discussing that in executive session tomorrow night. So Mr. Daly, he wasn't able to make it tonight, but he also said I wouldn't have anything to say before tomorrow night. And I said, well, will we know a dollar amount next week? And he couldn't you can't predict the future.
Right.
So he couldn't promise.
Alright.
Does that answer the question you're asking?
Yeah, I think so. I also, do you have the second question was, do we have any details on where the funding is being raised from? Is this bonding?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Bonding, go to the voters, ask, well, a debt exclusion, I think is the idea. I don't know if that's my assumption or somebody said that, but I would think it would be a debt exclusion.
That's my understanding too.
Okay.
So we'll hear from the select board next week, and then we'll build it next week.
I can't promise we'll vote next week, but I think I can promise we'll hear from the select board next week. I apologize on my end. It might have been better at some point to have Mr. O'Rourke, Mr. Loring, Mr. Daly all here at the same time. That didn't happen. So we asked Mr. O'Rourke various questions last week. We had other open questions. I guess all of this is the long-winded way of saying, what other questions we have for Mr. Loring?
Sorry, so to clarify, the school board committee, we know whether it's an either or situation, whether it's Guile or Labouré, they make that decision.
We don't know. The school committee doesn't make the decision on the school building. Again, I think a lot of people care about what the school committee thinks on that and
Right.
would have sway, but ultimately that is a town meeting. School building committee
Right, that's
So,
in that
yeah.
school building.
is established by town meeting.
So do they have an opinion on that, or
Do the school committee have an opinion currently?
who has an answer on whether, or is there an answer today on whether it is Guile Road or Labouré or both?
I don't know if anybody has an exact
Okay.
answer. I think the general assumption is that there's not gonna be two projects.
Right.
There's not gonna be two new schools built. Nobody's asking at this point to build two entirely new schools. I guess caveat of that is the Guile Road project currently has a 7-8 building and a separate pre-K building. So maybe there's a function in which instead of doing that separate pre-K building, you try and pull that over. The library project is bigger than I think what was going to be constructed for the pre-K. But again, that's actually some like conversation I don't think I haven't had with anybody, hasn't gone anywhere, which is kind of like off the top of my head thinking of like potentially you could do that. That would be, I think, the only scenario I could foresee where you might do things at both sites, but probably it's in.
Given the number of different entities that are involved in making that decision, I have a feeling we won't know much more at all when
Town
this
meeting.
goes to a town meeting. I think essentially what the article would be asking and the select board would be asking, and we would be recommending to the voters is, let's lock this down so we have time to figure it out.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, there is an exit strategy.
Well, because it's the warrant, the article before the town is to buy the land.
Yeah.
And then there'll be another article at some point in time in the future about let's fund
Fund, yeah.
school construction
Right.
project. I think that's more when that would come about.
Exactly.
But I think the town meeting would want to have a viewpoint that this is gonna meet the needs of the town by and large, and that it's, one or the other. It's not, I would think that would be an important part of the town meeting consideration, but it's good, they're gonna get kind of two shots at voting on that, one for buying library and one for then building a school, I think.
That's right, it'd be a totally separate vote, yes, and obviously that, the designs of the project would need to progress much further than the feasibility.
I think somebody might wanna put themselves on mute. And I'll go back to some of those discussed earlier, the sort of middle school question. I think, one thing that I'm thinking and people in this room are thinking is, it's one thing to say, well, you put a price tag on Guile Road and you put a price tag on La Brea and you compare the two, and if La Brea is cheaper, you do it. But maybe it should be a price tag on Guile Road compared to a price tag on La Brea plus an additional price tag that will eventually be needed in some form or fashion at Pierce. I don't know if I phrased that in the form of a question,
You didn't,
but
but yeah, logic makes sense. Also, the price, just to be clear, that was shared about the La Brea project also did not include the cost of the land acquisition, so
I think we got that, thank you.
we don't know that yet. But yeah, that is a consideration.
Okay,
Could you talk for a few minutes about the trending of student enrollments in various grades and what's forecasted to happen over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I can share what I've pulled and looked at. I don't wanna speak too much on current year enrollment. I don't know actually where we're at currently. Overall enrollment for the district has plateaued or around the last 5 years or so. Went up, spiked in 2020 or 2021, then dropped, then has gone up a little bit and mostly kind of plateaued. It's going up by like 20 kids or something like that, up and down. So it's mostly there. Usually kindergarten is a smaller entry grade. Obviously pre-K is not mandated, so that's quite small. Kindergarten's around like 330, something like that. Then it starts jumping up to about 350, 370, something around there, depending on the grade. Usually that is pretty consistent as you go through the 5th grade, 6th grade even, you start to see a little bit of a drop. Usually in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you add kids each year, just a little bit. 6th grade, there's a bit of a drop. 7th grade, there's a larger drop. 8th grade, there's a bit of a drop. 9th grade, over the last couple of years, 9th grade's actually gone up a little bit, but historically 9th grade has dipped. That's been the grade over the last 25 years that we've seen the biggest drop off actually is in 9th grade, but that has been changed in the last about 5 years. And then the rest of the grades in the high school are pretty flat. They're like not really adding kids, not really losing kids. So that's about what it is. So you do start, you're pretty consistent in terms of gaining a little bit of kids in your K-5s, losing kids in your middle school. And then in your high school, really it's at this point kind of about even from kind of 8th grade over maybe adding a couple kids. But again, it's not clear if that trend that's a new trend or just kind of a blip in the long term in terms of what's happening in 9th grade.
We were talking earlier about the video that we saw a couple of years ago that showed the overcrowding specifically at the Collycott Cunningham Library, Glover, I think, various locations. Can you talk to current like overcrowding situations? Are all of those improved? Are some of them improved or none?
It is slightly improved just because of the funding we received to do the Cunningham fourth floor project. So that was able to add an additional 4 classrooms in the old library as well as some offices. And then the fourth floor is the new library, which is gonna be opening here in a couple weeks. So that has helped to create some breathing room that has not nearly addressed the problem in the number of classrooms that have been lost through enrollment ads since the last construction project. Again, if you look at enrollment trend line since that project, we plateaued in the last 5 years since the projects were built. It's just a straight line up for a very long amount of time, and then it started to plateau. So we have added 650 kids since the projects were completed, which is why kind of the upper middle school project is around 650 kids. So that is still very much kind of an issue. There's still people working in what used to be closets and music rooms that are no longer music rooms, and art rooms with kilns in the closet that are kindergarten classrooms at Glover, and all those things are still kind of what they are. But again, we've had a little bit of support. Every year, really, there's like 4 incoming kids classes at Cunningham, Glover, Collicott, and might be saying it wrong, and then 3 like at Tucker, and then there's like a floater class, there's like a 5th one that jumps up and we move that around. And so usually that's one that like takes over an art room or a music room, things like that. And so the addition of 4 classrooms has been helpful with that. We were able to give a classroom back to Glover last year once those were completed, and so they got, I can't remember if it's their music room or their art room back last year. That's gonna be able to continue this year because we still have that kind of additional capacity, but yeah, so that was a very helpful and successful project, but there's still a lot of needs. And the high school and Pierce have obviously not been touched in terms of the impacts from the Cunningham fourth floor haven't helped any of them.
So the overcrowding has existed since, I mean, although enrollment has plateaued for the past 5 years, the overcrowding has been a problem for the past 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the school building committee was established 10 years ago at this point. Don't ask Sean, cause he's got a lot of gray hairs from it. So, yeah, so the problem was known by the town much more before the plateau of the last 5 years. Again, it's a very clear kind of upward trend, so, and we haven't seen like a downward trend. Again, it's kind of just been flat, so the problem is not at this point getting significantly worse, cause we're not adding hundreds more kids, which is nice, although, you know, love having more kids and serving more kids within the district, but it's not going down.
The Mass School Building Authority would not let us build for more than the number of students that we had at the time. That was the problem. And
Back in the
the
90s.
town made the argument that if we build nicer schools, because the buildings were crumbling, they were just awful. They said, and Milton said, if we build these nice buildings, people are gonna come back to the school system. And they came back, and then they started coming in droves. So even if we've plateaued now, like straight, it's that skyrocket up that Mark is talking about,
Yeah,
this.
from like 1999.
That the problem that we continue to deal with every year, yeah.
Yeah, the school building project is not meant to address anything with enrollment in the last 5 years. It was meant to address what was happening with enrollment the prior 20 years. And so that's, you know, how long this has kind of been building slowly over time.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Loring? Either a question that he can answer now or a question that he needs to take away? I don't think we've given you any takeaways yet. I don't think, given you any homework. Except for, you know, obviously there's I don't know if it's quite a chicken and egg problem, but we'd like to know what, you know, we'd like to get the school committee's vote, whether that's actually feasible before we vote or not. If it's impossible, it's impossible, but.
Yeah, on this, vote on whether or not we support the article on the purchase of the library project.
Yes, yes.
We-
Well, I guess, Nick, obviously the article in front of us is purchasing the property. I think we all sort of wanna know, what do you think about the K1 project, or K pre-K, but is that getting ahead of ourselves to get them to
I think you
commit
should
to
have a
it?
viewpoint on that, like, do you think that would solve your problem? Or, you know, the
Let's-
space problem, not your problem, but the space problem in the schools. Right.
Our
Because I think that would be valuable, But I recognize that that might be too early to have a official position on.
Yeah, I guess any space helps the problem, right? And like it's just a matter of like how much of the problem does it help? But a project is better than no project, and so there's also like the fiscal realities at a certain point of what kind of project will the town support, financially speaking. And so if the town will support a project that solves 100% of the school's space constraints, then maybe that's better and that's something we would hold out for. If that is like a price point or something that's actually never gonna get approved and passed, then something that addresses 50%, I'm not saying La Brea only addresses 50%, but a project that would only address 50% is still 50% better and helps a lot of kids and a lot of teachers. And like improves the student experience for a lot of people for a while. And so I think that's right now some of the discussion we've had is like, this has been waiting and waiting and waiting. And so if there's something where we see greater light, to be able to move as a town towards addressing the overcrowding within the schools, then great. And if like concerns about the Guile Road parcel itself in terms of land swap or the price of a new building versus renovating an existing building, if any of those things are like, I think that's just some of the conversation as a town we need to have, and it's a lot of people involved in like again, school committee, select board, warrant committee, town meeting, school building committee, and so there's a lot of pieces there, and I'm not sure even the best way to kind of create that conversation within the town, but I think for me, those are things we think about and have talked about, and we really just wanna get some additional space for the kids and the teachers because they've been begging for it for years and years and years, and we really appreciate everything the school building committee's done. We're really excited about the Guile Road project, the MSBA support, and like all that means and how far we've gone. We now have like a design team almost, we're back to that, so we're really excited about that. La Brea is another interesting idea of, could we do it? And I'm hopeful that the select board's able to also close the deal, but I'm a very kind of, I hedge my bets on that a little bit too, because some other parcels that we've kind of tried to work on as a school building committee previously fell through, so I'm worried about jinxing us too and talking even too much about this and us not being able to meet whatever La Brea wants for a sale price.
Okay, if that's all the questions, thank you for coming.
Appreciate you. Thank you as always.
This is your first visit to this iteration of the warrant committee, but I suspect not the last. We'll look forward to having you multiple times during the year.
Can't wait to come back and talk budget here.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I think that takes us through all our agenda items.
I'd like to make a motion to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, to adjourn.
You sounded like, you looked like you wanted to say something else.
I always wanna say something else. I like hearing myself talk, but go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, I would
Okay.
have more from Jay.